well-established Rich coming right back at you. Today is one of those conversations I don't take lightly. This is not a hit piece. It's not clickbait. It's not about trying to sound moral or intellectual. This is about common sense, context, and patterns that keep showing up in our culture, especially when money, power, and opportunity are involved. I'm talking about Tyler Perry. I'm talking about an inspiring actor. And we're talking about a lawsuit that on the surface sounds explosive, but becomes much more complicated when you slow down and read the details. And that's the problem with the internet today. Nobody reads, everybody reacts.
Filmmaker and media mogul Tyler Perry is now facing a second accusation of, according to a complaint filed Thursday in the Los Angeles Superior Court. Actor Mario Rodriguez says he was subjected to a number of instances at Perry's home. He's seeking $77 million in damages. A similar lawsuit was brought against Perry earlier this year. Actor Derek Dixon sued him in June for $260 million, accusing Perry of sexual harassment. Perry's lawyer has called the lawsuits a money grab.
First thing I want to say is this. Real victims exist. People have been taken advantage of in this industry. That is real. But here's what also has to be said, even if it makes people uncomfortable. Every accusation does not automatically mean the same thing. Every situation don't live in the same context. And every claim deserves to be based on facts, not feelings. If we lose that ability, then we don't care about truth no more. We only care about the narrative. Now, let's talk about what makes this case different. This ain't a story where somebody disappeared and came back decades later with no contact in between. This is a story where there is documented communication years after the alleged events. Friendly communication, grateful communication, check-in communication. And that don't automatically mean somebody lying, but it absolutely changes how the situation has to be analyzed because human behavior matters. If something was so damaging that it altered your life forever, people expect distance, not continued access. Again, no judgment, just reality. What also stands out is the role money plays in this entire situation. Not just the lawsuit number, but the message he sent before it ever got there.
All right, so y'all can see it at the top. It actually says to Mario Rodriguez, new iMessage. And then this is all supposed to be the language that you see here. These texts are all coming from Mario. And it says, brother, haven't been feeling okay, confused, and a little nauseous. I got blood work, think it might be my teeth. I know it's none of your business. I don't know what to do. I know I promised you I would never ask you for anything. But if it is what I think it is, I don't think I could do it on my own because I can barely pay my bills. Scared AF. I don't want to get sepsis like my dad and pass away. I don't even want to mention it because I don't want to make it real. Feel sick. Most days, never told anybody but my mom. And every day is starting to notice my broke ass. Don't have insurance. Listen, this is very poorly written for a text message. I just want to share that, child, because I am trying my best to struggle with it. But I think he's saying that everybody's noticing that he can't afford to pay his bills. So he just said that. Then he goes on to say, I'd never lie to you, but I think that's what's wrong. My dentist is supposed to take care of it in Beverly Hills, but he's in prison for fraud. I've always been healthy, but lately I've been waking up confused and dizzy and a bunch of stuff. I just can't go to the doctor because I can't afford it. I don't want anything. I just want to be okay. So this is basically him pleading, saying, I'm not asking you personally for money, even though he is. I'm not asking you for money for something, materialistic.
Struggling financially, no insurance, scared about his health, behind on his bills. Anybody who been broke before know that feeling. That's not shameful. But when you express that to somebody who holds massive power and massive resources, it creates a different energy. Not because you asked for it, but because you put it out there. And this is where people get confused. You can be hurt and still be applying pressure without knowing it. Those two things can exist at the same time. Now let's talk about Tyler Perry specifically, because you cannot remove who he is from the story. This man is not just a director or producer. He is a system. He owns land, he owns infrastructure, and he funds himself. There are very few black men on earth who have done what he has without permission from Hollywood. That makes him powerful, and it also makes him vulnerable. Because when you don't need the machine watches you different. This is why reputation is currency. You don't have to lock somebody up to damage them. You just have to plant a doubt that never fully goes away. And in today's culture, once your name is connected to certain words, it don't matter how the case ends. The headline lives forever. This is why so many people settle situations that never see a courtroom. Not because they're guilty, but because they don't want their legacy turned into a debate. And this is where I want y'all to think deeper. We've seen this playbook before. We've seen situations where nothing illegal was proven, but the embarrassment was enough to force a check. And that incentivizes a very dangerous trend. Because if you can turn an accusation into a payday without proof, then the system itself creates the motive. That don't mean every case is false. It means the environment is ripe for abuse. And that's what people don't want to talk about. Now let's talk about timing. Why now? Why this amount? Why this lawyer? Timing is never accidental in civil actions. Never. And when you see similar cases clustering together, using similar language, similar presentation, similar strategy, that's when analysis is required, not hysteria. What also bothers me personally is how quick people are to dismiss the idea of manipulation. We talk about manipulation all the time, just not when it doesn't fit the narrative we want. People manipulate emotion. People manipulate sympathy. People manipulate power. That don't erase real pain. But it does mean every story has multiple layers. And here's the part that really gets skipped. Tyler Perry's personal life is not the same thing as his professional legacy. Who he loves, how he lives, and what his preferences are have zero to do with what he has built. And I hate that we live in a culture where those things get weaponized when money is involved. You can disagree with somebody's lifestyle and still acknowledge their business genius. You can support real victims and still question suspicious timing. Those things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, if you can't hold both, you're not thinking. You just reacting. Now, let's go a level deeper. One of our biggest problems is that we confuse allegations with conclusions. We act like the mere existence of a lawsuit automatically means something definitive happened. And that is not how real life works, especially in civil court. Civil cases are not about proving criminal guilt. Civil cases are about money, liability, and pressure. That does not mean they're fake, but it does mean they operate under a very different incentive structure. And when you understand that, you start seeing why certain people become targets more than others. Tyler Perry is a perfect example of that. He independent. He don't answer the studios. He don't need industry protection. He don't need cosigns, which means his name takes a hit. There is no corporate machine rushing to shield him. That makes him powerful, but it also makes him exposed. Now let's talk about something that people dance around but never say out loud. Access creates confusion. When somebody opens a door for you in an industry that is infamous for keeping doors closed, gratitude can turn into expectations real fast. And expectations, when they are not met, can turn to resentments. That don't mean somebody is lying. It just means human emotions are complicated. You can feel helped and still feel disappointed. You can feel close to somebody and still feel left behind. And when money enters that emotional mix, everything gets louder. This is why those text messages matter. Not because they prove anything definitive, but because they show a relationship that did not appear to be one-sided or hostile for years. That's not taking sides. That's me asking questions. Questions are not attacks. And I hate that we reached a point where asking a question is seen as disrespectful. If your story is true, it should survive questions. Here's another piece people keep skipping over. The role of third parties. Lawsuits don't come out of thin air. They come from conversations. They come from advice. They come from people saying, you should do something about that. And sometimes that advice is coming from people who have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Attorneys work on incentive. Media works on attention. Social media works on outrage. Put all three of those together and you have the perfect storm. That does not mean every case is fabricated, but it does mean the environment rewards accusation more than verification. And that should concern everybody. Because if the standard becomes accusations equal truth, then anybody with something to lose is always at risk, especially black men with wealth and visibility. And yes, I said that on purpose, because history tells us that black success has always been scrutinized differently. When a black man builds something too big, too fast, too independent, people start looking for cracks. That don't mean Tyler Perry is above scrutiny. It means scrutiny should be fair, balanced, and fact-driven. Now, let me say this clear because I don't want my words twisted. If anybody is ever proven to have caused harm, they should be held to the fullest extent of the law. But accountability comes after facts, not before. And that's what I'm pushing back against. This instinct that we have to decide everything in real time based on headlines and emotional reactions. Because it teaches people they don't need evidence. They just need momentum. And momentum can be manufactured. Now, think about this part, because this way it gets quiet. Why is it always a specific dollar amount? Why does it always sound like a number forced to get a response, not a resolution? $77 million is not a random figure. That's a statement. It says this is big enough to hurt you even if you win. And that's not just about compensation. That's about leverage. This is why I keep saying we have to learn to read between the lines. Because the court of public opinion don't care how a case ends. It only cares about how it started. What really bothers me about these situations is how fast everybody rushes to take a side. But nobody rushes to understand it. We live in a moment where the internet decides guilt long before the courtroom ever gets a chance to. And that should make all of us uncomfortable. Because if the standard is just allegations plus emotion, none of us are as safe as we think. This is not about defending power. It's not about attacking anybody. This is about thinking for yourself in a time where that skill is disappearing. You can care about people who've been hurt without turning your brain off. You can believe real victims exist without believing every story is automatically true. Both things can live in the same room. And if we lose the ability to separate emotion from fact, we're not moving forward. We're just reacting louder. So what I want my audience to do is simple. Slow down. Look at the details. Pay attention to timing. Pay attention to motive. Pay attention to who benefits. Not everything is conspiracy and not everything is a crime. Sometimes it's just a story that needs to finish before we can figure out what it means. I'm never gonna tell y'all what to think. I'm just gonna tell y'all to think. And if that makes people uncomfortable, that's fine. Growth usually does that. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.